After the critical failures that were X-Men Origins Wolverine and Green Lantern, Ryan Reynolds truly proves that the third time is the charm with Deadpool. This is today's review. This is an on-demand review. This request comes from Death Samurai. Thank you very much for your recommendation. Finally, I sat down and watched this movie. It escaped me it was so under my radar, even though it did have a really good ad campaign to it. A lot of hype to it. But I don't know, I guess I was getting the superhero fatigue. I was getting kind of sick of superhero movies. But here's something that's so daring and so different and so truly outrageous that I'm kicking myself now for not having seen it earlier. It really is a great movie, I gotta say. I mean, this is something that people just didn't think was going to happen, like here it is, a full hard R kind of movie, a superhero that has questionable morals, will just, kill at will pretty much, has no moral compass, I guess is the best way to put it, very outrageous and predictable and pretty much a sociopath, but Ryan Reynolds plays this character with such a joy that it's easy to forget the kind of despicable nature of the character, sort of. But I mean, this is just something that people didn't think was going to get made. It was kind of like in development hell, and you'd always hear a little bit of news about it, and they think, oh well, we can't do it because it's an R-rated superhero movie is not going to make any money. People aren't going to see it. Well, here, and unfortunately, I wasn't part of the audiences, but audiences proved that wrong by going to see it, and that's something amazing. That's something truly incredible, really. Because, I mean, studios, they're cowardly. I mean, they gotta make what makes money, right? So this was a big risk. Not a high-budget movie. This did not have, $250 million like Batman v Superman, but it is an infinitely better movie in just about every way possible. And what's so amazing about the movie is that it is really successful in not being just a superhero movie, but also a spoof of superhero movies. So, it has its cake and eats it too, basically. It knows that it's trudging through all the cliches in the book, even, right from, the opening credits, where they're not really opening credits, versus, all the... It has a villain with an accent, it has a moody teenage girl, etc., etc. So it knows it's trudging through familiar territory, but it has a lot of fun with it. And that's a difficult line to walk, I think, because, when you look at movies that tried to kind of do the same thing, if you want to go, straight spoof, wasn't there a movie called Superhero Movie, that had, Leslie Nielsen in it, and Shooter McGavin from Happy Gilmore was in it, or something like that. And it was during that phase where there was a blank movie for everything, disaster movie, epic movie, whatever. And it was horrible because, I don't know, wasn't funny, wasn't a good superhero movie either. Even something like Kick-Ass, which I found Kick-Ass to be a good movie. But at the same time, we do have the moral questionability of characters, which ultimately... combining that with the actual story, it takes itself a little bit too seriously when we get to the final act of it. As good of a movie as it is, I think Kick-Ass is a pretty good movie. But here, it is an exceptionally funny movie. An exceptionally funny comedic performance from Ryan Reynolds. And it absolutely works as a superhero movie itself, even though it does. I mean, it does all the same kind of cliches that you can expect, all the same tropes, and what's even more interesting, it does kind of wedge itself in sort of to the continuity of the X-Men movies. They show the Xavier School, they show Colossus and Negaton Teenage Warhead, or whatever her name is, as the moody teenage girl. The actress is great in that, by the way. And so they kind of work in the continuity, and they even poke fun at that. Of course, meta, fourth wall breaking, all that kind of stuff. He's like, I will take you to see the professor, And he's like, is it the McAvoy professor, or is it the Patrick Stewart professor? I get the timelines mixed up. So it's funny stuff like that, kind of winking at the camera the whole time. I love it. And I really got to give Ryan Reynolds credit. He pokes fun at himself, too. What did he call himself? God's perfect dumbass, or something like that. Really funny. And... the performance really is good, and you got to give it credit not just for that, but for the fact that his entire face is covered by that mask. It's not even like a Batman kind of thing where you can at least see, say an Affleck kind of chin, what's going on there. Here, the whole face is covered, but it's able to emote. He's able to get the emotions of the character and the attitude of the character out of this fully encompassing mask, which I think is a testament to the talent of not just the actor but the makers behind the movie. And it really is a great comedic performance. It feels like something maybe like Jim Carrey would do. That's kind of how I feel is the range of this performance. It's one of Ryan Reynolds' best, and the movie works because of him and his determination to really stick with it. So I love that, and I just love the general attitude. Again, it doesn't fall into the same stakes that something like Kick-Ass did, where, yeah, they kind of take it a little bit seriously by the end. Here, it's not really taken seriously. In fact, it does actually kind of remind me, I talked about it maybe a month or two ago, Tank Girl. Lori Petty, like, here we have this movie, this stupid comic book movie, this stupid Hollywood production, barely has a plot. But the appeal of that movie is that the character is not really taking anything that happens seriously. And we get that same kind of attitude to a much greater success with Ryan Reynolds in Deadpool. In fact, there are kind of scenes that remind me of Tank Girl, actually, like the whole kind of section where he's like being tortured and put up into the tube and stuff, you know what I mean? Kind of reminiscent of Tank Girl. The two people who watch Tank Girl are like, oh yeah. Anyway, but no Malcolm McDowell. See, that had a villain with an accent too. Anyway, I think it never runs out of steam. You know you're getting a special movie when at the beginning of a superhero movie, the hero he's taking a cab, which is funny, and he's like making friendship, making this whole kind of back and forth with the taxi cab driver, and that comes back and pays off really well too. So it's just great. It's so funny. If it has any flaws, I'd say maybe. Well, the movie kind of rides on one big joke, sort of, where. And I'll say spoilers if you haven't seen Deadpool, but there is one kind of big joke. The whole movie is about this character, this complete off-the-wall psychopath. He's found out he has cancer, and he's with his girlfriend, and he's like, oh, I love her, I can go and cure the cancer and be with her again, but everything gets fucked up, and essentially, I want to get the guy who did this to me, etc. And so, finally, when he has him at the very end, holding a gun to his head, Colossus, the good guy, is like, no, you can't do this, blah, blah, blah. And he's making this whole big speech. He shoots him. Haha, funny. I think they played that out just like a little bit too much. Like, he went on a little bit too long. That's even part of the joke. It's like, oh, you were talking too much. I had to do something. It reaches a point where I think the audience is ahead of the joke. Which, for the whole movie, like, leading up to that big joke, there reaches a point where it's like, oh, he's going to do it. It would have been a lot funnier if they, cut it by, 20 seconds, just when you're about to say, you know what, I think, blam, shoots him. So I think that was maybe the one kind of misstep of the humor of the movie, unless they intentionally wanted people to kind of think, oh, yeah, he's going to do it, but he does it. And, it does... While it certainly pokes holes and it certainly makes fun of it, does kind of fall into the same kind of cliches. The girlfriend gets kidnapped, the hero has to come in and save the day. Meanwhile, he never remembers to bring his fucking arsenal with him, and he's kind of just stuck. But that leads to some great action. The action in this movie, I mean, not to downplay it one little bit. It's definitely a comedy, I would say first and foremost. But, I mean, this had some of the best action I've seen in a superhero movie in a long time, which I think when you have a smaller budget, you have to get creative. I think in these bigger budget kind of superhero movies, these big, epic, hundreds of millions of dollars productions, you can afford to be lazy. You can't in something like Deadpool, which I think was I don't know, $60 million, something ridiculous. But it's quite amazing what they pulled off. Quite amazing what Ryan Reynolds pulled off. It didn't work out so well with Origins Wolverine. Didn't work out so well with Green Lantern. But Deadpool is an instant classic. I really regret not seeing it earlier. I think it's a fantastic movie. I think it's so funny and action-packed. And Ryan Reynolds is just perfect in the role. So I loved it. So thank you very much for the recommendation, Death Samurai. Thank you for finally getting me to see this movie when I was so lost of hope with all the superhero movies, especially after Batman v Superman. But anyway, so yeah, that's my review. If you have a movie that you'd like me to review, comment below. I want to know. Tell me what to review. In the meantime, be sure to comment, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff. Visit Derek237.com. And until next time, I'll see you later.